you guys have been watching me struggle with my feelings about Caitlin Clark. And yesterday, I received a very, very thoughtful email from a fan of this show and someone with some historical knowledge of Caitlin Clark going all the way back to her high school playing days in Iowa. I want to share this letter because it provided me some context and some background and some wisdom that I was a tiny bit unaware of. And it's from a woman, a mother of 3 or 4 kids who are athletes. Anyway, let me share the email, and then I'm going to unpack some further thoughts as Caitlin Clark wraps up her first regular season in the WNBA. We get ready for the playoffs because next week, guys, I'm going to be talking about Caitlin Clark, the Indiana Fever. The WNBA playoffs start on Sunday. I think this is, I think it's the biggest story in sports. We talked about this yesterday in terms of, it's like Sports Illustrated is leaning into Angel Reese, putting her on the cover, and people are acting like we're giving too much attention to Caitlin Clark. We're not giving enough attention to Caitlin Clark and what all she represents and what the impact that she's having. We've never seen anything like this. I think Caitlin Clark, what she's doing, putting this entire league on her back, dwarfs what we've seen from Magic Johnson and Larry Bird, what we've seen from Michael Jordan, even what we've seen from Tiger Woods. I've never seen, it's just like I said yesterday, Sports Illustrated comes out with some list, and there's all these WNBA-related people on this list. And we all know none of them would be there without Caitlin Clark. And that's why, like yesterday, I was like, this woman is Kunta Kinte. That she's the slave that's carrying the entire WNBA, and you have all these grifters and colonizers and exploiters from Cheryl Swoops to Angel Reese, all piggybacking off of Caitlin Clark, using her to elevate themselves while not giving her the credit and pretending like it's them. And so I look at, there's those of us that are 30, 40, 50, 60 years old that run around, beat our chest. We built this country. And we're talking about people from 150, 160 years ago, but we're taking credit for it. And I'm like, no. Caitlin Clark built and is building the WNBA, and Angel Reese and Cheryl Swoops and Andrea Carter and Elle Duncan and Chimney, I can't pronounce her last name, and Kathy Engelbert and all these other people, they are running around trying to steal the credit for the work of Kunta Clark. It's incredible. But because I've had some criticisms of Caitlin Clark that has pissed off a lot of you. But I stand by the criticisms, but I want to share this email I received. And it's a little bit long, but I want to share it all because I think it's important for you all to understand what I'm coming into understanding of. Hi, Jason. I have followed you since Kansas City. I have listened to your podcast nearly every episode since I heard about it when you were on Glenn Beck years ago. I enjoy that you are fearless and opinionated. When people unfollow you, I really think it is people who know you from X and not really from your podcast. If they listen to your podcast, they would have more understanding about your Caitlin Clark opinions. Good start to the email. I love when people have this historical knowledge of myself. She's talking about how I mentioned yesterday, like, hey, I'm paying a price that I'm going to pay, willing to pay for stating my honest opinions on Caitlin Clark. I'm being unfollowed on YouTube, being unfollowed on Twitter, or on X or whatever. People are upset. I've triggered some of you. And so I appreciate her saying, like, they really don't get you because they just don't. I'm an iconoclast. I tend to criticize icons. That is me. It's been written about me since, I can remember the first magazine article ever written about me in 1992. It was in Ann Arbor, Michigan. and they called me an iconoclast, and I had to ask somebody what that was. And I had to go to the dictionary to figure out what an iconoclast, but that is what I am. I take on icons. Let me continue with the woman's email. She then transitions, Caitlin, my background is that I grew up in Iowa. One of my closest friends from dental school has a daughter who was on Caitlin's club team, all Iowa attack when they won nationals. My friend's daughter said she was glad she was on her team because she turns into a beast in any competition. She said it as if she changes personality and can't turn it off until she wins. She said she gets super bratty when other players don't practice with her intensity, and that was irritating. She could really throw a fit if you didn't work as hard as she thought you should be working. She also said outside of competition, Caitlin is great. She is super kind and giving and extremely funny. She has stayed for every single game to sign every single autograph of each person who wanted one. She is extremely charitable in the state of Iowa. I believe that most Iowa fans are so passionate about her because of all the above and because our state is loosely her personality too. Iowans are hardworking, loyal, intense, passionate. The entire state is essentially a small town. Generically speaking, we have watched tornadoes and floods come and go with hardly a national response. We take care of our own. We truly are the flyover state. All of my best friends are still in Iowa. We have that history that you know is authentic and it is hard to reproduce. Iowa has no professional sports. We have the NCAA, and during this time, everyone is either loving Caitlin Clark or wishing for Kirk Ferentz to retire. The University of Iowa is the closest thing we have to professional sports, so there is a passion out-of-staters can only try to understand. I pay tuition for my daughters in college and still at a different college, not at Iowa, and I still love the Hawkeyes more, and they have the worst offense ever. There is no end in sight. That's another shot at Kirk Ferentz. Sometimes when I say, I'm going to skip that. So anyway, I'm going to pause here for a moment and just analyze what she has just shared, which I can relate to. She's saying that during games, the things that I don't like and I get upset about, the histrionics towards the refs, the behavior that seems spoiled and petulant, is someone who has a completely different personality and intensity level during a game than their normal self. And we were talking about this morning with my team, and TJ Moe made the point. I said, like, man, this sounds like a football player who just goes into a completely different mentality and is a completely different person than they are normally. And he goes, yeah, like every linebacker I ever played with. And that really rang home with me, that I would watch people and myself become a different person playing football than I was in real life. And so perhaps that's what's going on with Caitlin Clark. And because it does seem like, man, this nice girl who says all the right things in every press conference, her teammates seem to love her, and she's got this incredible sense of humor. How can she be so spoiled and petulant on the court? How can she just be this other person on the court? And it bothers me, and I'm glad this mother and woman wrote me and kind of shook me up and said, hey, Jason, you need to remember this. All right, let me go back to her email. With that said, I will come at you as a mom of athletes. I have 4 daughters and a son who have or are playing sports. It is a different experience to be a parent of a girl athlete now. I was an athlete, and what my kids are experiencing is completely different than what my generation experienced. We had 2 girls play basketball through high school. My daughters did not play in college because they were ruined by bad coaches in high school and hated basketball by graduation. We took them off a national club team because the coach was a middle-aged shorty who cussed at them and called them names like an overreactive child. We were all well aware our daughters weren't going pro, so we took them off the team because we also had a duty to protect them from this jackass. Unfortunately, they had a female coach in high school who coached with DEI in mind, and it was a disaster. Once they had to write down on paper what caused them the most anxiety, and my older daughter wrote having to talk about feelings during basketball practice. The coach made her stay after and tried to shame her about how she wasn't sensitive to others' feelings, and my daughter said, "I was serious. We should have been practicing today." Both daughters hated basketball when they finished high school, and it took over a year to get them to play basketball again in college. Coaching girls is a mental game more than a physical one. And honestly, most girls coaches and refs are just horrible. In the major city where I live, the refs call fouls based on high school location and perceived injustices, not a joke. They don't protect players. Horrible and never got better. I look at Caitlin and I think, poor them. Her dad needs to keep parenting her because honestly, she is 22. I am sure my daughters would still be bitching about the terrible refs, and that is without all the other BS Clark is subjected to each day. Woman says, white girls in basketball with talent are targeted by refs in high school. I cannot imagine the burnout Clark's parents have felt. We were happy to be done with it when our daughters graduated, but it is bittersweet for the game we loved when they were little. I honestly cannot believe Caitlin has handled it so well. Girls are not boys is what I have to remind my husband when he says things, you know what I would do, as advice to our daughters. I do believe that she will mature, and I do not think for a second that she isn't anything but 22. My 20-year-old daughter tried to Instacart a calculator the other night. She is in college on an academic scholarship. The kids her age are idiots, even the smart ones. Caitlin has great parents, and she will figure it out. I think some of this is to draw attention to the shitty refs, just like her drawing attention to the fact she had better transportation in college. In short, you're a guy with no daughters this age, and the WNBA has a bunch of lesbians writing about feelings on paper, and Clark just wants to play ball and have better refs. The Clark fans are just out of control fans because there isn't stuff to do in Iowa otherwise. And plus, Kirk Ferentz sucks, and he won't go away. So the ending of that and what she's, and I have factored it in, but I did not think about, when I think about Caitlin Clark playing in Iowa, I'm thinking that had, as a high school kid, that had to be a different experience than playing in the WNBA. This woman is educating me that when you play in these AAU circuits, these national circuits as high school kids, you run into the same kind of DEI, garbage, and racial politics that's at large in the rest of society, and that an elite level white girl athlete faces a much different, harsher experience than a black girl. And it's not just the stuff Caitlin Clark's dealing with. She's not just been dealing with it in the WNBA. It was there when she was a high school player and playing in AAU and summer basketball. And where does she channel that frustration? Where does she get to have revenge on all the people that, perhaps have mistreated her or treated her disrespectfully when all she wants to do is play basketball? And they should be allowed to do that. You join the WNBA, you deal with these black kids that have been programmed that their whole life needs to be built around policing the thoughts and the worldview of white Christians. And we don't have a right to be silent. We don't have a right to just play basketball. Caitlin Clark just wants to be a kid and play basketball and enjoy the sport. She's in a pressure cooker. If I was trying to interpret this whole email, the woman's basically saying, like, man, Caitlin Clark takes out her frustration on everything that she's doing on the referees. She's not allowed to take it out on the players on the court that are mistreating her, talking crazy to her, trying to get in her head, being extra physical with her. She's channeling her frustration at the one group where she can channel her frustration. And maybe Caitlin Clark is smart enough to realize that she can channel her frustration at them because the entire radicalized left will support any behavior that's a challenge to authority. And that's why I'm sitting here and have been sitting here like everybody wants to criticize Caitlin Clark. They want to take their pot shots at Caitlin Clark. And they never take the easy pot shot. They want to talk about Caitlin Clark and her doing this for a brief moment. They want to talk about her being overrated, and she's not. But they will not talk about like, wow, look at the way she behaves on the court. It comes across as spoiled and petulant and entitled. You know, she looks like the bratty suburban kid. They won't take that easy shot, and they won't take it, in my view, after reading this email and giving it more thought, is because the left is in support of any and everything that inappropriately challenges authority. So they actually like that Caitlin Clark expresses all of her frustration at the referees, because that is a signal to young people that you should be non-compliant to authority. Help us grow the Fearless Army. Pound that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with all your fearless friends.